Good day, and welcome to another episode of Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. Another light in this darkened world. I am your host, Penny L.A. Shepherd, and I am Agent X11. My co-hosts are David Zublik, Heather Day, Joan Renee, Chris Montgomery, Skip Press, Tom Althouse, Jessica Garza, Edward Medallion, Dr. Keith Abloh, and TJ Ward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist, begins now. And welcome to another episode of Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. My name is Penny L.A. Shepherd. I am Agent X11. If you don't know why I am Agent X11, you're going to have to Google my name, Penny L.A. Shepherd, and it will tell you all about myself. I'm joined by my co-host, Joan Renee, Skip Press, Bob Pullen, and our guest tonight is Dominic Halpin. We are in for quite a show today. Dominic Halpin is a psychotronic targeted individual, but he has created a wonderful documentary, which we're going to be doing a series on. And he will be meeting our very good friend, Jesse Baltran, and he is in London, I believe in the outskirts of London. I'm not sure where you live, Dominic. But I'd like to say hello to my co-host, Skip Press. How are you? We did an engaging show on former President Obama on America's Golden Eon, AGE.
I'm good. I think we got through all of the essentials and exposed a couple of things that nobody knows except me and a few other people. So
that's right. And so if you haven't seen that show, you need to watch it. It's on every Friday from 12 to 1:30 p.m. That's Eastern time. Joan Renee, how are you?
You know, I'm good. And on Skip's show, if people go back, you can go back to Washington and go through every single president up to the present. So, and Penny does share her videos, so you can use them for free, whether you're a teacher or just someone interested, they are available. So I just want to say that. And you asked him how I was. I'm good.
Excellent. And Bob Pullen, thank you for joining us. How are you? And we cannot hear you. So I'm sure you'll work on that. Bob?
There we go.
Nope. We still can't hear you. You
Check
might
your
need to pop
computer
out and pop back in again. Check your computer, make sure that your mic is on, and then we'll go ahead and we'll pull you in. As soon as he pulls back in, everyone's having a little bit of technical difficulties today, not these years, but this year for sure, and today. So Dominic, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and we're going to be sharing your Cognitive Liberty. Can you tell us the entire title of your documentary?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Penny. The title is Cognitive Liberty, Mind Control, and it's about the use of psychotronic weapons in America and around the world today.
And tell us a little bit about your history, like who are you and how this actually happened that you became a psychotronic targeted individual.
Sure. So I've worked in the tech industry for about 20 years, and I've done kind of various jobs there. But about 10 years ago, I started my own company. It's a B2B tech publication. So it's not really kind of interest probably to this audience, but it's, for tech buyers in business. So that's kind of really the day job. But more recently, as you know, I've got into this realm of brain impacting weapons, neuro weapons, as they're called. And that's because I am a victim of these myself. So I retweeted something about the British monarchy in the UK, and not long after that, I was attacked. And then very quickly after that, I started getting gang stalked. I tell the whole story in the film. It's an attack at a distance with weapons that impact the brain. So these weapons I don't personally experience voices, but they can send voices into the mind. They can send video and images into the mind, which I have experienced. They can zap you and cause pain anywhere on the body from a distance. And these are weapons actually which there is a big paper trail for. So the mainstream media have covered them when they've talked about things like Havana syndrome. Again, it's a lot of theory. There's no recognition of the civilian victims that are going through this. There's only recognition of the military victims, of course, and they're now being compensated and getting, healthcare. But really, it's for many victims, it's not about getting compensation. It's about making this stop. Their daily lives are hell because they wake up every morning and are tortured from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. And often they're kept from going to sleep. There is a sleep deprivation element to this as well. So yes. It is a horrific program.
That's a psychological operation within itself, because without proper sleep, you get psychotic. And that's a psychological operation, sleep deprivation, which they practiced. When I found out that I was under MK Ultra, even before it, I went back to find out why I had so many psychopaths in my life. And so I studied psychopathy, and I went back to study, why did Geffen, because Geffen's a music producer, but kind of a prolific psychopath. And I went back to study why, Skip's laughing. I went back to study why he showed up at one of the gigs that I was at. And I know that it was him. So I got his book like 30 years later. And that was my predicate for that. And then I studied the inception of the term for PTSD, which actually developed from shell shock from the Army and things that they were doing on that. Bob, how are you doing? And we still can't hear you. See if you can go in your settings and turn on, instead of if you have a microphone, perhaps turn on, just go back to your computer. And there's a settings thing. It's like a little gear at the bottom in StreamYard. You can click on that, look at your settings and see where your microphone setting is, and then try to see if you can get on just your computer mic, because maybe if you have a mic. Maybe. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. I changed it in settings. It goes back to a default every time I do this. I apologize.
Yes, it does. Well, if you turn off your, mic, that's a tech thing. So, Bob, you have military experience.
I do have military experience. I served for 24 years in the U.S. Navy. That was 3 years on active duty and then 21 years reserve. I enlisted in 1977 and I retired in 2001. Held a top secret clearance for that entire time, which if you've had a security clearance, that's really not that big a deal. It allows you to do your specific job without knowing what anybody else is doing. But it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. I also worked in conjunction with the reserves. I worked for a large telecommunications firm and retired from them in 2021, November. It's been about 4 years now. And Mr. Halpin, some of the things you're talking about, I've heard of, but never personally experienced. And it looks like, and I know might have missed this earlier, but you've got a new documentary out. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so, actually, Bob, in my study of MK Ultra, was the Navy that paid the checks out for some of these covert operations. Not sure why, but just letting you know. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to play a little bit of your documentary, and then we're going to have again, I said we're going to do a series on this. We can kind of get through it, but we can have some poignant discussion on some of the salient points. And this documentary is so chock full of information. I was very pleased to see that you had mentioned Donald Ewan Cameron and a lot of other individuals. So here we go with just a little bit. So this is your fair use declaration, which we use all the time. Jesus said, I will give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no hand has.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms.
In the shadows, a silent menace lurks. It's a weapon that most governments refuse to acknowledge exists.
We are not aware of a technology that does this. We've never seen a technology anywhere in the world that does this to people.
It's invisible, has been in development for decades, and it may have been used to influence you without you even knowing. It's a weapon of mass destruction. It is believed to be the cause of Havana syndrome, but its capabilities don't stop there. It can create pain inside and outside the body, and send thoughts, images, voices, and video directly into the mind. It can also read your thoughts in real time, and responds to them at lightning speed. It is being combined with real-world psychological torment that includes gang stalking or flash mobbing to drive people to despair, to suicide, or worse. It is used to torture people around the clock. Every minute of every day for years on end. This torture can include painful spikes and zaps that prevent you from concentrating on anything, or voices in your head that make disparaging comments to you all day, chipping away at your patience and self-esteem while making you paranoid about everyone and everything. Sometimes these voices pose as people you know, or even God. If you speak about your symptoms, you're likely to end up isolated from friends and family. and often at the mercy of doctors in a mental health facility, following the typical protocols for psychosis and schizophrenia. A growing group of people who are under attack from this weapon are refusing to be gaslit on this issue any longer. They're people who know they've been victims of a military-grade neuroweapon and a sophisticated psychological operation designed to destroy their life. In this film, we join those taking the fight to Washington, D.C., London, Ottawa, and Brussels. The question is, will anyone listen?
It's important that we inform the public that there is a serious problem happening with energy weapons and electromagnetic frequency and energy.
At the beginning, it felt like there was somebody behind me at all times.
My target has started when I went to work for the federal government.
I feel like I've been enslaved by someone that I don't know or a group that I don't know that has been testing in a human experimentation manner.
If they put you on this program, there's no getting away from it.
I've had to kind of learn how to just wipe certain feelings.
The program is so well executed that it is difficult for us as regular civilians to prove.
The victims of these top-secret neuroweapons call themselves targeted individuals. The experiences of targeted individuals tend to be a combination of symptoms that fall into three categories: audio-visual, physical, and real-world. Many people on the targeted individual program report both audio and visual anomalies, often voices, images, or thoughts sent into their minds. The images appear in the mind's eye, both when the eyes are open and closed. The voices are heard inside the head, not through the ears. The thoughts present as your own thoughts, but often include things that seem odd, like words that aren't in your usual vocabulary. Victims report that these attacks seem to be trying to psychologically break them. The voices react to both the thoughts and the speech of the victim. In addition to voices, victims who suffer the audio effects also report hearing strange noises, tinnitus, and a debilitating pressure inside their head. These symptoms mirror what we've been told about Havana syndrome and match the capabilities of a weapon known as V2K, or the voice of God, as reported in Wired. The voices often pose as God, dead relatives, or other personas. They say things to humiliate the victim, make them paranoid, and control their behavior.
This is a very debilitating technology that injects voices into your head 24 hours a day, nonstop, very harassing, threatening, condescending, just constant harassment in the worst way.
I experience pretty much 24/7 V2K. I haven't had silence in around 7 years. There's nothing really said that is worth anything. It's all a lie. Anything that's ever said through V2K is not to be trusted. It's there to make my blood pressure rise, maybe even shorten my life. It was hard for me to talk to people because it was like talking to two people at once, or at least listening to two people. The chatter starts before I even wake up. That's how I wake up every morning. It forced me into suicide twice.
It's clear, concise communication. This is not something abstract because I'm a social worker. I work with individuals with disabilities, and I've worked in mental health for a number of years. It's not that. It doesn't manifest or present as that. It is individuals speaking to you, taking out your credit card, get that number, you having intimacy, and they're discussing your body parts or your husband or wife's body parts. So this is an active engagement that's happening through some sort of radio frequency.
Okay,
Wow.
so we just touched the tip of the iceberg. So we know now that in the UK, if you make a post, you have the Facebook police or whatever, the mean police coming at you, that they're thought crimes. And also, if there was a woman I have Kate Shimarani on our show, so she's in the UK, and she's talked about women praying. Jan Happer Hayes has been on our show. She's a psychologist. In the instance with a woman praying, they came up to her and said, "Hey, are you praying?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she got arrested for essentially a thought crime. This is the way that, you know, we're headed towards the reality of Minority Report. And I spoke with you offline about the fact that I report in the military industrial entertainment complex, which, you know, Skip and I have been engaged in for quite some time, but they work hand in hand with the military industrial complex. They're synonymous with one another. One cannot work without the other. And that's the effectuation also of the MSN, which obfuscates these things that are happening. And then when you talk about also, let's just add in the military industrial medical complex, which seeks to refute actually what covert actions are happening. Maybe sometimes they don't know. It's their obligation to know. In my feeling that they have an obligation to know that these psychological operations are happening when they're diagnosing them falsely of having schizophrenia. And in fact, they don't have that. I believe, Dominic, that my brother David was one of those people who did have, I call it old tech, which is voice to skull, which was an actual implant. But you suggested that it's even, its generation now is more nefarious because it's via like 5G and other things. So tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's 5G, but certainly the new cell towers, obviously, when you think of cell towers, they are just transmitters of microwave energy. So, you know, obviously they're transmitting at a certain frequency. That frequency then carries the packets of data to your phone. There's nothing to say that you couldn't turn those cell towers to a certain frequency that impacts the brain. And it was a Yale neuroscientist. He was actually a Spanish gentleman, I believe, Jose Delgado, who was in the 60s and 70s experimenting with electromagnetic frequencies on monkeys. And he even did an interview with CNN where he said potentially we could even change somebody's personality with this technology, which, you know, at the time you kind of might have thought, oh, that's just
who was the guy?
But
Was it Donald Ewing Cameron? Because I saw it in your video. I was like, damn, that said we can make anyone into a serial killer.
yeah, that was apparently Ewan Cameron. So for anyone who kind of knows a bit about MK Ultra, they'll know that Ewan Cameron was actually it was kind of one of the most hideous experiments of MK Ultra. And actually, it's still in the news today because the victims in Canada, I think it's only about 6 to 8 months ago, have only just got recognition that they're entitled to compensation and, you know, how much compensation. So that's kind of still in the news. But Ewan Cameron, the reason I included Ewan Cameron in his work, or Dr. Cameron in his work, is because it's very similar to what the targeted individuals experience. And what I mean by that is Dr. Cameron used to do something called psychic driving. So he would kind of put people into a coma through drugs, and then he would play a repetitive message non-stop. So it might be you're selfish, you're ugly, you're whatever. And then he would kind of see what that repetitive message did to them over time. And he would also electrocute them. And he actually said that he found in his papers the more somebody is electrocuted, the more disorganized they become. So what seems to be happening for targeted individuals is they are hearing not necessarily a repetitive message, but they're having somebody in their head using this voice to skull technology saying, you're useless, you're pathetic, you're fat, you know, you're stupid. And obviously these voices are not only replying to what they say, but also replying to what they think. So can you imagine all day having somebody replying audibly to what you're thinking about? It obviously drives a lot of people to mental asylums because, of course, some of them might think they don't know about this technology. Some of them might think, hey, maybe there is something wrong with me. I'm hearing these voices. And then they go in. And from what I understand from some of the targets I've spoken to, is when you do end up in that stage when you're in an asylum and you start taking the antipsychotic drugs, then they'll start petering down the technology so that you think the drugs are working. But you know, there are others.
Stuff, man.
Yeah, so it's quite sinister. But what's being said to these people is the real story, because there are quite a few of Targeted Justice's members have said to them, and it's actually covered in the next bit of the film that we're just about to get to. There's a girl who says that her voices in her head say that if you don't do this, that, and the other that we're telling you to do, then we will kill your family. So they're having threats made to them about their family in their head. And of course, if you don't know what's going on, then it might drive you to do all sorts of things. And something else we come onto in the film is the voice posing as God. And so if you've got all of a sudden God talking to you in your head saying, I mean, there was one very tragic case of a lady who killed her two young sons. She was a very Christian lady, and all of a sudden God started talking to her in her head saying, I need you to make a sacrifice, a bit like Abraham was going to. She killed her two of her three sons, and she's still in prison to this day. And she said in kind of testimony, God ordered me to. God was speaking to me in my head. There was a kind of active, back and forth between us. So she'd been kind of driven crazy by this technology, as many people are. It would drive anyone crazy if you had somebody commenting on your thoughts all day or threatening you in your head. And this is what this weapon is being used to do. So they can't quite take over your mind and control you. It's certainly from my experience, but they can manipulate you and kind of threaten you into certain activities. And that seems to be what has happened.
So I have a question for you. I have a question for you, Dominic. Do they have to instill anything into the victim in order to get this to work? Or, like the nanotech or a implant or something like that? Because it seems like that was a part of the big push with the COVID shots. And then those of us, I know I've gotten tested, and I believe Penny's gotten tested. We didn't do the shots. We didn't do the thing up the nose or any of that. And yet when we were tested and they had a machine that could turn on that tech to discover it, we also had it in our bodies. And so is that something that you need to have in your body in order for them to do that?
Well, you probably hit on the biggest question that all targets face, which is, have I been implanted? And nobody knows, of course. Mm-hmm. I've done a similar test to that, where I've been scanned, and there was something that was found at the base of my neck, like a kind of signal. But I don't know. I certainly don't have any recollection of having technology inflicted upon me. I mean, I did have to have stitches in the back of my head, so maybe, but I'm not 100%. However, what is interesting is that with the microwave auditory effect, which is what voice to skull works off of, so I mean, even in the Havana syndrome reporting, the mainstream media consensus seems to be this is pulse microwaves that are causing this. So it seems that from Alan Frey, who was a neuroscientist in the 1960s, discovering the microwave auditory effect, they've actually now honed down that technology to be able to use it not just to send audio, which was discovered in the 60s wirelessly, but now they can send images and specific sounds, voices, and video as well. So yeah, that's a big question. Nobody's sure, and that's what we're all trying to find out. And obviously Jesse is doing great work on that.
The big mystery is that if you're in a crowd of people, or and that you're the only one that's getting it, I think that's the big mystery. It seems to be specific, and there seems to be some way that they make it specific to an individual, which would make you think that there's an implant or there's some kind of a IP address or something that they could read in order to target you specifically and not affect the other people around you. So I think that would be another question, is how do they do that?
Well, Dr. Robert Duncan, who was a CIA whistleblower, did kind of cover that. So he did a podcast with Danny Jones where he talked about his work at the CIA was kind of commandeered by them, and he realized it was being used in nefarious ways. So he was uncomfortable with that and left. But he said all you need is really a brain print. So I presume he means an MRI. So once you have an MRI, then you can target a specific brain. That's what he said. He didn't mention implants at all in his show with Danny Jones, or in, as far as I've seen, any other interviews he did. So, but he was the kind of main whistleblower on voice to skull and this electronic harassment.
There's a good chance that people who have been injected with the COVID have an IP address that went along with their jab.
Yeah, I've seen all of these stories, and certainly I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
Can I do a follow-up question, Mr. Halpin? With these various, call them targeted individuals, have you seen any kind of a recurring theme or commonality on who might be targeted?
Good one.
Well, there seems to be, I mean, there are some people that have no reason to think they would have upset somebody to be put on this list. So there are some people where it does seem like it's just they're chosen randomly. There are, however, a lot of people who have either been whistleblowers or they've reported a crime. You know, they've seen some kind of nefarious activity. There was one girl in the film who was reporting what she thought was drug dealing in her local area, and then she was put on the list. So it does seem to be a mixture of people who are kind of whistleblowers, or they posted something on social media, or they've annoyed a powerful person. So this tends to be the criteria. But there are a few cases where, and certainly I've met some where people have no idea why they're on the list, and you know, they just are very nice people and they can't get their head around it.
I'm surprised I haven't been targeted. I tend to annoy a lot of people, so I don't know. But thank you. I do have a couple more questions, but I'd like to wait a little bit because it's probably near the end of something I had a question about later.
Okay. Shall we play a little bit more, Dominic?
Whatever you want. Yes, please, Penny. Thank you.
These headaches, these directional sounds. It was the lyrics of the song being said out loud in like a robotic, like Alexa voice or something, and it scared me. I froze. It's always some kind of manipulative thing. They're projecting some kind of outcome they want, and their phrases revolve around that.
If you're a religious person, they might try to pretend to be an angel or a demon or something, and then try to convince you to do things that you might otherwise not do.
I was being sent visuals and images, sort of like an augmented reality overlay. There were visuals being sent to me while I was driving. There was a car accident. The vehicle that I was in rolled over.
It started out with V2K, so I started to get dizziness, tinnitus, started to hear family members and friends' voices in my head. Felt like a radio was being tuned in around different areas of my home. It really wanted me to lash out. It was almost like whispers, like they were talking about me. You're locked inside your own head. It wanted to isolate me as much as possible. I knew that it wasn't true, and so it really made me retreat into myself. I got, thank God, on the path of understanding little by little just exactly what this program is.
The voices are just, for me, they were very condescending, and they were very aggressive.
I receive voice-to-skull transmission as soon as I wake up from 6 o'clock in the morning, when I go to shower, when I eat, when I call my mom, when I go to meeting, when I go to sleep, when I watch a movie, 24/7. It's just a game playing with my mind. They use plenty of torture technique. The most famous one is actually just starting a sentence, so my brain finish the sentence and get distracted.
I hear voices. They are commenting what I am doing, what I am choosing, what I'm wearing, and my thoughts. They most of the time talk evil things to me. So they call me various names. For example, they call me fat or stupid and those kind of things. In the beginning, it was much worse because they were telling such things like, if you not do that and that, I will kill your family. So one time they tried to show in their conversations with each other that it would look like a panic attack, like that one person has a panic attack and the other one is acting like, oh, you're having a panic attack, and everything was in my head, you know what I mean? So they were making that like action, like a theater show.
The V2K is incredibly torturous. You can see that V2K is a patented technology. Like in your mind, you'll be thinking, I want to do something, I want to get a shower, or I want to go to the loo, for example, and they'll create an image back, sort of to ridicule. It's a lot of ridicule and humiliation, and it really does get you down. Lately, it's been non-stop asking for money. Will you owe us some money? We're going to be shutting you down soon. And when we do, we always ask for a payment. They were increasing the torture, but really increasing it.
I'll wake up with full tinnitus blaring up. It's horrible.
Back in the day, it was called MK Ultra. I don't know what they call it now, but they started doing V2K stuff to me, and it was making me very paranoid and stuff like that. I didn't know what was going on.
Particularly in the voice-to-skull phenomenon, we get computer-generated voices, computer-generated answers, so it appears to be a human-to-human conversation in some ways, but after you read like a page of the dialogue, you realize the conversation is very awkward. If you had a difficult relationship with your father who has passed away, they'll use the voice of your father to use and harass against them.
Make the person feel as though they're going crazy. This is what the people behind this program were counting on. These victims, they develop a relationship with their voices, sort of like a Stockholm syndrome, and they actually defend, no, my V2K told me this. How are you going to trust the same entity that is torturing you?
Next, there's the physical attacks. Victims who suffer the physical attacks report haptic feedback on their body.
Okay, before we go to the physical attacks, I would like you to say you made a post, right? You made a post about, what was the post in regards to the royal family?
So there were two actually. One was a QAnon post, and then the other was a post where there was a whistleblower in Ukraine saying he'd seen Prince Andrew in a very inappropriate situation, put it that way.
Interesting. Because he's just been outed in America as sex trafficking and having sex with the late Virginia Giuffre, involved with Epstein. He's been kicked out of whichever castle that he's been at and stripped of his titles. He's no longer known as a prince. So that would seem that whatever that post was, it struck a nerve, Dominic, because it was the truth. So shortly after you make this post, and you're not thinking there's going to be any repercussions, are you?
No, I mean, I thought I lived in a free country, and certainly, I thought I was free to criticize the monarchy. After all, they are the head of state here and in the Commonwealth, and so in a democracy, surely you can, comment on the head of state. But it seems not.
Obviously, America had a different idea. That's why we left. And it seems like the oppression is still continuing. So then tell us what happened shortly after that post.
So I was attacked in the street by two complete strangers, had a head injury, and I went to hospital to have stitches. And as soon as I got back from the hospital, there was a knock on the door, literally as soon as I closed the door, getting back from the hospital, having my stitches. And it was somebody from a charity, or posing as they were from a charity. And they started to tell me about how proud they were of their royal patron. And of course, I was dazed and confused from the head injury, but I looked up, they looked me straight in the eye, and they said, yeah, as if to say, you've been warned, because of course my brain had put the two incidents together at that point. And then they walked off without finishing the charity pitch, so didn't ask me to sponsor their charity at all. So it was clear it was just a warning. And then immediately after that, my gang stalking started. So people would be following me. I would go to buy groceries. There'd be maybe 2 or 3 people that looked like they were filming me, waiting outside my house. Even taking my dog for a walk, there would be, people that, and what they do is, it's not just people on the street. They go out of their way to make you know that you're being followed, but it's stuff that if you tell anyone else, it sounds crazy. So if you say, well, I went out and everyone was filming me, or there was somebody waiting outside my house filming me,
and they say,
right
we have
outside
a room
my front
for you
door
here in the crazy house, and we're now going to drug you, and you're schizophrenic. This is the psychological operation, which involves the military, industrial, medical community. And now some may know, some may not. Some may actually be working for, and I still call it MK Ultra. The church committee had Richard Helms, who allegedly destroyed files, which I don't believe that actually happened, and I don't believe that MK Ultra ever ended. I think it just became more covert, and it is global. The Manchurian Candidate, Kash Patel just did a post the other day about the fact that he got the word from Chi in China that they're going to stop the fentanyl, So he's like, hey, all righty then. And so I responded to that post and said, have you heard of Manchuria, China, which the Manchurian Candidate is named after, and it is about puppeted assassins. And I believe this is part of the orchestration, but it's also more complex, Dominic, because it's involving people like Elon Musk who are creating technology, and he just got kicked out. It's involving Elon Musk, who is creating technology called Neuralink. And Neuralink, they're saying that they want to implant the Neuralink in your brain. And initially, when Elon Musk was doing this, there was some litigation against him from PETA because they said that he drilled the holes in the monkeys' heads, and they put actual tech in the monkeys, but they used, and excuse me for telling you all this because it's pretty horrible, they used a glue that melted the monkeys' brains. Now, I live near a facility in Bastrop, which they said was a cancer facility, and they were working on animals, on apes. And I had heard from a source that they went into town and the apes were all, this was around the corner from where I was, the apes were all standing like a military formation. Okay, apes don't do that, just FYI. And when they came back, they were still standing in that formation. And Alex Jones has talked about it. He said they wanted him to go down there. So under the auspices of cancer research, they're also utilizing, and being tested, or being paid rather, for some of these experiments. Kathy O'Brien's husband worked at Emory University. And he was doing MK Ultra experiments, which he understood what mind control was. And I thought that maybe he was a bad guy, but apparently when I interviewed Kathy, she said he was the love of my life. He saved my life. And so I encourage people, when you make some decisions about people that you don't really know, try to be ginger about it, because you really don't know the truth until you actually talk to that person. And that person could be snowing you, and maybe you get a feeling about that, or that person is actually telling you the truth. It looks like he got kicked, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
But we have plenty of stuff to discuss.
We've had that happen many times, especially when they're disclosing things that they don't want out. So
yes,
I don't know.
One of the things that happened on our show most recently was with Stephen Ben-Nun, and Stephen Ben-Nun disclosed something that was very relevant to me. He said they will warn you. He said they'll come up and they will warn you, sometimes not so close to when it's going to happen, but sometimes he said they'll warn you about a year in advance. Well, I was warned to stop talking about MK Ultra, and an individual named John, and I will not say his last name. I was warned to stop talking about John. I was also taken to a military base because one of the individuals who actually ended up sex trafficking me was a commander at the DAV in Illinois. And he took me into the facility, took me on base, took me to the facility and said, do you want to end up being locked away in a place like this? Because if you continue to talk about John, this will happen to you. So this individual who was targeted, Dominic, took some matters into his own hand, and he created this fabulous documentary. I'm going to play a little bit more of it.
Of taps, spikes, shocks, and severe pain, as well as difficulty breathing and muscle spasms that target them from the moment they wake up. Some victims also display severe burns to their face or limbs. These attacks also seem to react to thought. Many believe these attacks come from directed energy weapons, with pulsed microwave frequencies being one of the speculated culprits.
During the first 6 months, when someone becomes openly targeted, they'll use very intense directed energy weapons on them. and it's very debilitating. These weapons are extremely painful when they dial them up. I mean, I can't even express how painful it is. For me personally, when I had that, imagine being in a fetal position on the floor screaming. When I say painful, I mean extremely painful.
That headache, you know, it feels like someone's actually hit you on the back of the head and then that travels all around your facial bones. That was excruciating. It went on for 15 hours one day. I'm not joking. It was unbearable.
I find myself being hit by DEWs, which are direct energy weapons, which are painful. And I have those inside my home. I have them outside my home in my car.
One night, it was like a red hot poker going into each ear, both at the one. You know, and it was. I thought I was going to die. I didn't know what was happening.
I get harassed with direct energy weapons. My attacks are so severe that I get pains everywhere in my body, and I cannot function.
Direct energy weapons to me to wake me up, sometimes feeling the heart racing.
I get attacked in the head, the eyes, the private area.
This morning I was woken up at 2:30 with an electric shock. I go for 5 days of no sleep sometimes. They forced me over in the shower and broke my wrist. That was like an electric shock that pushes you over. My heart, they attack my head all the time, my eye part.
They typically go for like my breathing and all. An area or a side of my chest is pushing in or just staying still and not expanding with air.
I've been burnt radiologically using directed microwave beams with directed energy weapons several times. I've been to hospital twice with burns.
In addition to these invisible attacks, targeted individuals complain of real-world persecution.
Okay, so before we go to real-world persecution, I'm going to explain a little bit about there was in the beginning of this, we saw a newscast about Palm Desert and some direct energy weapons. There was a group of gay individuals who actually put up a billboard and said that they were being targeted. This is in California, in Palm Desert. I played out in Palm Desert a lot at the JW Marriott with my band. And so here's some examples of what they call dews. And I, made a joke about it, Mountain Dews, right? So Dem Sharad is a mobile laser system mounted on a Stryker vehicle that uses 50 kW high energy laser to defend against drones, mortars, and rockets. Thor is a high-power microwave system that the U.S. Air Force has tested successfully to disable drone swarms. Helos are high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. A high-energy laser weapon like one developed by Lockheed Martin designed to intercept drones and fast attack craft. Odin is an optical dazing interdictor, and that is from the Navy, and Dominic has entered the room.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's okay. How they work. High energy lasers, HELS. Isn't that funny? Hells. Because you're in hell when you get hit with one. Emit a concentrated beam of light that can melt materials, destroy sensors, or damage fuel tanks and batteries. This is a weapon of mass destruction that they're deploying against citizens. High-powered microwaves, HPMs, generate microwaves that can induce currents in electronics, disrupting or burning out microelectric components. So you might have had something like this happen to your computer. And then potential uses for DEWs are military defense to counter threats like drone swarms, missiles, and small boats, and crowd control. There has been consideration for using microwave systems to create heat on the outer skin of individuals. It's saying the systems aren't currently deployed for this purpose. This is from AI, and that is a lie, my friends. They also are using the voice to skull to have armies put down their arms. So they say, Allah told you to submit and put your arms down. And they will do that because they think they're listening to the voice of God. I also believe that my brother David had this technology in him when he was disclosing, and he wrote an unpublished book entitled The Whistleblower about Bush, about my family, and about the deep state. He wrote it kind of covertly, but very thinly veiled. And he was attacked, and they essentially broke his face, broke his jaw. He had to have his face rebuilt. He called me before he went into surgery, and then he had his jaw wired. I went to go see him, and he did not go back to the hospital. He actually took out the wiring in his jaw by himself. And then when he was murdered in California, in San Diego, on Mission Beach, I often say his mission ended, but mine did not. I did not get his body back. And I was told by my husband, Sam, that my brother had been liquidated. And I did not understand what in the hell he was talking about, because that is a term that the Nazis use. He was liquidated. And in the case, he said that he was kept in the morgue and then his body disintegrated. That's some bullshit. I'll just tell you that right now. Your body does not get disintegrated. You get put in the morgue and you get put on in the freezer, and then they're supposed to tell your family. But my husband was actually a San Diego police officer. He's a Carlsbad police officer, rather, in San Diego. His father was a San Diego sheriff, but we were not told that my brother was murdered. My sister informed me 2 months later, and she lives in North Carolina. So that's very odd. Dominic, thank you for joining us again. We're at the point where we're talking about the real world scenario, and I have told our audience what the dues are. And we're not talking about paying your dues. We're talking about direct energy weapons. Dominic, after you were warned, then what happened to you?
So then the gang stalking started. So as I say, I was followed everywhere. People would come up to me, kind of causing a scene in public. For instance, I was in the park once, and a guy came out of nowhere and he put his arm around me, and then he shouted to another girl across the street, "Oi, ugly," so that she looked at both of us. And then he turned to me and he said, "I'm watching you," and then walked away. So it's little things like that that are meant to psychologically kind of destroy the person. These little interactions where, you know, if you tell anyone, it sounds crazy. So there's a kind of real world component to this psychological torture. Also, as many targets experienced, I also experienced the break-ins. So often they will come into your house and just move things or hide things. They won't break anything, won't steal anything. I came home, I went to buy some groceries, came back, and I had somebody had left a tooth, just a real human tooth, by my computer. So it's little things like that that are kind of little, kind of satanic, creepy, you know, psychological things to break you. I moved cities, and then my electronic harassment started. So I'm now 2 years into being electronically harassed. As I say, they've sent images into my head, they've sent video into my head. But the main kind of method of torture is from the moment I wake up, I am zapped for every thought. So every time I think, it might not always be painful, but, you know, imagine if you think, "I'm hungry, I'm going to go to the fridge," and then you get somebody tapping you on the nose as soon as you think that. Or if you're entering your credit card or a password into a website, and then it will tap you on the ear to say, we can hear what you're typing. So it's this constant, I wouldn't say conversation, but there's a constant feedback loop of death, basically, to every thought you have. And of course, for the people who hear the voices and have the V2K, the feedback is voices and comments on everything they think and do and say. But luckily I don't have that. And, you know, certainly in the TI community, everyone kind of respects the V2K people because they're probably suffering the most. But this is still horrific what the physical targets are going through. So yeah, it's not a nice place to be.
I've got a question, Dominic. Prior to those two guys showing up at your door, what did you do that might have been a threat to the crown or the state or something, if anything?
Well, I mean, from kind of 2018, 2019, I was an avid Trump supporter, and I reposted something, the kind of QAnon conspiracy. So there were obviously a lot of posts there, and Trump was heavily hinting during 2020 that it was coming from him. And so I reposted something, and that post was actually about the crown. So the QAnon post I posted was actually about the royal family.
Well, that's it. That's it then, because that little incident, that's extremely typical of MI6.
Yeah. Well, I think, this is who Trump's really fighting, isn't it? It's
yes.
When people say the globalists, they mean, the European Union, the British Royals, all these people that are intent on taking us into a world of carbon credits and carbon taxes and this kind of control grid, and obviously they talk about programmable money and freedom of speech, but what really isn't covered by any of these influences, freedom of thought, and how in danger we are of losing our freedom of thought and privacy of thought.
Yeah, City of London. Yeah.
Renee, do you have some comments or questions?
Who?
I'm sorry. Joan, do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. One of the things that's running through my mind, because I did a lot of volunteer work with in a safe house and other things, and it seems like people would tell me about being targeted, and it sounds very familiar, but this was like 3 decades ago. And so I'm just wondering, how long has this been around? But it's only recently that we've been understanding what it is, or that it's been used enough that we've become aware of the technology that's behind it. Do you have any idea how long this has been going on?
Well, there are some people there was actually a gentleman called Harlan Gerard who was kind of making headlines in the 1980s saying he was targeted since the 1980s. And they did an experiment where they kind of went from state to state. They went to a kind of place which had no telecom, wireless telecoms coverage, obviously, but it wasn't really until the kind of mid-90s anyway that we started seeing the cell towers go up. But he went to the middle of nowhere and he was still getting attacked. So they gained from that it was probably coming from satellites.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, we've kind of put all these microwave antennas and receivers at the end of our streets. So now it might be a lot easier. This certainly seems to be why they're scaling up the program and why there's a lot more people now that say they're being targeted. But it has been going on since the 80s. And actually, the kind of tactics they use in the real world, the kind of breaking into your house, moving things around, or following you and stalking you, that's actually a tactic which was called Zersetzung in the Cold War. So I think it was West Germany, they were doing this kind of thing. It was a Nazi tactic, as you said at the start, Penny. So this Zersetzung, or COINTELPRO is kind of, you might also refer to it as, because it's very similar to the COINTELPRO.
Yes, and I'm going to add to that. I think he just froze. I'm going to add to that. So Donald June Cameron was born the 24th of December, 1901, and he died the 8th of September in 1967. He was a Scottish-born psychiatrist, largely known today for his central role in unethical medical experiments and development of psychological and medical torture techniques for the CIA. He served as president of the American Psychiatric Association from 1952 to 1953, and the Canadian Psychiatric Association from 1958 to 1959. And the American Psychopathological Association in 1963, and the Society of Biological Psychiatric in 1965, and the World Psychiatric Association in 1961 to 1966. So I'm going to say that we're going to talk about the fact that he was doing experiments by the Nuremberg, before the Nuremberg trials. He says, in spite of his high professional reputation, this is from Wiki, he has been criticized for his experimentation on adults and children, administering electroconvulsive therapy and experimental drugs, including poisons such as curare, hallucinogens such as LSD, to patients and prisoners without their knowledge or informed consent. MK often, this is still going on. Some of the work took place under the context of Project MK Ultra program for the developing of mind control and torture techniques, psychoactive poisons, behavior modification systems. Decades after his own death, the psychedelic technique that he developed continue to see extensive use in the torture of prisoners around the world. So in 1945, Cameron and Nolan D.C. Lewis and Paul Schroeder, colonel and psychiatrist, University College of Illinois, again, ill and annoyed, were invited to the Nuremberg trials for the psychiatric evaluation of Rudolf Hess. Their diagnosis was amnesia and hysteria. For a short commentary in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Hess later confessed that he had amnesia. How freaking coincidental, right? Before his arrival in Nuremberg, Cameron had written The Social Reorganization of Germany, in which he argued that the German culture and its individual citizens would have to be transformed and reorganized. So was this actually a protocol of the Germans during the war, that they were going to MK Ultra? I know that Hitler had designs with Joseph Mengele on creating the Uber super soldier, and eventually that premise got to the point where when we had computing abilities, that they would be able to upload your consciousness into a computer and download it to a synthetic body, if you will, or even a robotic. So Elon Musk in 2026, which is around the corner, is preparing an army of robots that they will enter your home just like iRobot, and they will be servants, and they will be downloading programming to them, or they will come with software already loaded. There was an individual who was within the truth community who talked about a couple of years ago that there were several scientists in China that were murdered. They were trying to download software from a satellite to these robots, that the robots then drew weaponry and killed a bunch of the scientists. And one of the robots, while this was going on, while they were disassembling the robots, one of them called the satellite and asked, "Can you make me stronger?" so that it wouldn't get disassembled. Are these things really happening in our world? Well, we see what Elon Musk is doing. We also know that Elon Musk has created something called Neuralink, and we talked just a little bit about it. So Neuralink, there's several propositions in it. One is to create a hive mind. Now, we've talked about this on our show, Joan Renee and Skip Press. And and some people refer to it as a mark of the beast, right? It's an implant that will go in the back of your head. And then you will not, and I saw a woman who actually had it done in her hand. She was all happy. Looky, I don't have to have my phone anymore, and I don't have to worry about losing my keys. But the premise would be for the social score, right? That everything is in your hand, your banking, your medical records, your car, your your transportation, your house. And then what are they going to do, like in Demolition Man, in order to get that implant out of you? Can they then hijack your banking and hijack your house, or can they hijack your brain? Thoughts?
I'm not the least bit worried about Elon Musk and Neuralink. Donald Ewan Cameron was with McGill University in Montreal, and there's a Montreal MK Ultra, and this is straight British Crown stuff, right? And Dominic was right about the British Crown and what Trump's fighting and all that. It's straight out of the City of London. Those guys, the English, are the enemies of the world. And I'm not worried about Elon Musk robots. I think they are beneficial to some degree. I think he's lunatic if he thinks that there's going to be 1 billion Optimus robots in use. Ain't going to happen. And but the Neuralink thing, he's got blind people seeing with Neuralink. I don't think it's like his idea is to program America and the world with implants and stuff. I don't think it. I think it's really the British are bloodthirsty as hell. I mean, I've known enough people on the inside, let's say, of the British Crown and their spy people. they'll get away with anything, and they think they're destined to rule the world forever. And they're on their way out, So I think that's where, particularly Donald Ewan Cameron, I knew a hell of a lot about him when I was in Scientology, because L. Ron Hubbard, for all of his lunacy, exposed a great deal of that kind of stuff. So,
Penny, I had a comment and a question. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. In case Dominic does come back, I know we lost him for now, but just something to throw out there. And I mentioned to him that I retired from the telecommunications industry in 2021. And I think it was 2 years prior to that, maybe mid 2018 into 2019, where our company started installing the 5G network. And there was, and all the telecom companies were doing this. And there was a lot of controversy about the 5G network, and several of our technicians refused to participate in the installation. Now, I was supervising, I'm partially supervising a crew that was involved in that. None of them refused to participate in the installation, but I do know that happened elsewhere in Northern California. And one of their concerns was, and this is really common in the industry, where they come out with a new technology, but they don't teach the hands-on, the people with boots on the ground, how to properly install this or how to troubleshoot it if it goes into trouble. For instance, in many cases, these people have to climb a telephone pole or use a bucket truck or whatever to install these things, and they have to be at a certain height above the ground, and they have to follow a certain protocol, safety protocol, before installing it. And then once it's installed and up and running, if it goes into trouble and goes down, what's the procedure after that? And to their credit, our union stepped in and said, okay, we're not doing any of this stuff until you give us some specific procedures, because it says you should not be within 10 feet of the radiation. So how do you avoid that? If you got to climb a pole and get in front of this thing to whatever you got to do to it, detach it, replace the unit, how do you make sure it's de-energized first? And they had this whole procedure where we'll call this toll-free number, call this 800 number, tell them where you're at, de-energize the thing. How do you know for sure it's de-energized? They had a test set for that. But they were being pressured by upper management to go ahead and initiate the repair before the device was de-energized. And so the union fortunately pushed back on that. And this happens a lot in the industry when new technology comes out, you get procedures after the fact. So welcome back, Mr. Halpin. I was just talking about, before I retired from the telecom industry, I was involved in, not personally involved, but supervising some of the installation of the new 5G network. And there was a lot of controversy about it. So my question is, in your opinion, is there any tie-in with this new 5G technology to what you're seeing with some of these targeted individuals? I'm thinking maybe it's like what was said earlier, maybe it's just a more expedient way to use this technology. I really don't know. But yeah, I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, so if you look into the new base stations that they've just installed, part of the kind of selling point for them is that they operate on a lower microwave frequency. So they operate on the millimeter band, which is when you start getting into being able to interfere with brainwaves. This is the kind of, from my understanding, my limited understanding, this is the way you start being able maybe to penetrate the skull and to impact cognition. There was actually, you probably know ex-senator.
Can't hear you.
I think he's freezing.
Weldon. I think he was a senator.
I think your Wi-Fi is wiggy. You might want to come back in on your phone because you're freezing a lot.
Directed energy.
Dominic. You're freezing, Dominic. So we can't hear you. You might want to come back on your phone.
I have a feeling that something's happening. My phone isn't working very well. It seems as though somebody's interfering either with my Wi-Fi or with my phone.
Of course.
Yeah,
What a
the
shock.
screens are freezing as well. I'm not entirely sure why this would do this. Let me try coming out and coming back in again.
Okay. Now, I do want to address something that Skip said. So technology can be used for good or bad. Technology in and of itself is not bad. There are philanthropic good things that can be done with this technology. And who's using the technology for nefarious reasons? Anyone can use this technology, good or bad, for their means, their ends to their means. The covert factions in the government are utilizing this technology to injure people because that is their objective. Their objective is control, compliance, and and I mean, I look at things also from a movie standpoint because I know that the CIA does work throughout the entertainment community and they disseminate information throughout some of the movies. So you'll see movies that happened years ago, but now they're actually happening in real life. And my point about the robots is that iRobots within there, in that movie, they had protocols which they could not breach those protocols. And these are things that we have to bear in mind, and we have to try and understand the implications. Boy, everyone's popping in and out.
Yeah, but here's the thing, which Bob mentioned with the guys that are doing the installations and all that sort of stuff. They just said, "Wait a minute, this is dangerous," and they started fighting back. Even in British intelligence, they reached a point where the social situations in England are so screwed up that even British intelligence and even people in the CIA, they're kind of getting to a point in Trump's operations is a large part of this where they're just not going to put up with it anymore, and they're starting to fight back. So there's this conceit, and Hollywood has certainly pushed this, Enemy of the State, movies like that they're all seeing all powerful, and it's inevitable that they're going to win out, right? That is a lie. It's a manufactured mental construct. It's a lie, and it's falling apart. And so the things that you're doing, Penny, and David and everybody, these things, the impetus right now is with you guys, rather than the overarching take over the world state. And more people need to sort of get this in their heads that they're not going to win.
I say that's what our job is. Our job is to just display it for its good, its bad, its ugly, and its potential for helping mankind. And then it's up to humanity to make the decision as to which road we go down and how we turn this around from having it in, Austin Powers, Dr. Evil's hands with the weather laser, which is real. I mean, who would have known? And I did work on set of Wayne's World, and that's a whole nother story. But Joan Renee, what are your thoughts?
I'm looking at all of this, and I do, like I said before, I do believe that this has been around a lot longer than we know. That people are just beginning to figure it out now because we're becoming tech savvy, and we know that tech is behind it. And so people that would, like you said, Penny, people that were being locked up in crazy houses, some of them, maybe had mental issues, but some of them may have also been targeted individuals. And this goes back clear to Martha Mitchell, if anybody can remember that far back.
Yes.
She started disclosing against her husband, and she wound up in a mental institution, and she said they were targeting her. That was way back in the 60s.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I think not that it's a new technology, but that we are becoming aware of it. We're becoming smarter. And Dominic himself is from the tech industry. He spent his life in that. So I think a lot of the information that he has is very valid because of that, because he's going to know some of the ins and outs. So that's kind of my thoughts right here. Oh, he's back.
No, in the world of psychological operations, the medical community has been used to incarcerate and to devalue and falsely label people as mentally ill. For instance, Frances Farmer was one of those individuals who was in the movie industry, and she rebuked being in the movie industry. She didn't want to be in it anymore, but her handlers and controllers, her mother, kept throwing her in a mental institution, and the inevitability, and if you look it up on Wiki, it says it didn't happen, was that she was one of the people who was a recipient of the first frontal lobotomy.
Yeah,
Dominic?
that's a bad story.
It is a bad story. Dominic?
You're muted.
You're muted.
I'm muted. Sorry, I missed the start of that. I do apologize. I'm
That's
sorry
okay.
about all this. I don't know what's going on. I never normally have these problems when I'm doing my business calls, so I think somebody is
Of
definitely
course
interfering
not.
with my Wi-Fi.
But you know, this is
Hey,
part of the
guys!
disclosure rule, and we understand it. We understand it well. We just have a few more minutes left in the podcast, but we're going to continue doing this. We're going to continue. We're going to have a series with Dominic Halpin, and we're going to go through his documentary. We're going to talk about the viability and reality of targeted individuals, and you know, many theories on what causes the targeting, but you know what caused yours. And we're going to talk about targeting all over the world. Our very good friend Jesse Beltran has been talking about a lot of different things, from implants, which are actually physically put in an individual, to remedies, and he is about making remedies. Okay, not, and that's one of the things we do in our trauma triage team. I wrote a song about it, and it's mending hearts and finding solutions, mending hearts and starting revolutions. We're about finding solutions, not just talking about the problem, but actually coming up with, hey, what can we do to find a solution? Skip is saying, you know, the future is not bleak, the future is positive, and we need to concentrate on the positive applications. I focus on the possible negative applications of what the philanthropic intention is, but then I, you know, of course, look at the possible Dr. Evil implications and what our government is doing. And Dominic is just spinning. So I'm going to remove him. I think I'm going to ask for some final comments and thoughts on how we can better serve humanity. He's trying to come in one more time. And Joan Renee, we're at the end, Dominic. We want some positive thoughts as to how we can affect humanity in a positive manner. And one of those things is what you're doing in this disclosure. What are your final thoughts for today?
That's for you, Dominique.
Connected.
Okay. So final thoughts to close out the show. Final thoughts of what we can do to change. So final thoughts to close out the show. Final thoughts of what we can do to. And
Dominic, can you hear us?
Sure you can hear me?
Yeah.
No, we can hear you.
I can. You can hear me. Okay, I'll take my headphones out.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. I mean, I would say this is impacting a lot of people, and this is torture in a way that has never been seen before on the planet, because of course this is torture in and for your thoughts, and you can't escape it. You can't, you know, go and shut your door and get into bed and pull the covers over your head and hope it goes away. This is from the moment you wake up, psychological torture, physical torture, in a way that is very sinister. And you know, when you hear some of the things that these people are told in their head, it does make you wonder. You know, it doesn't seem like this is an intelligence agency operation, because it's almost hard to imagine that they would have so little ethics. You know, but these people are having their lives destroyed. And you mentioned the mental health industry. You know, it does make you wonder how many people have been through the mental health industry and the you know, military industrial medical complex, as you called it. You know, that this almost in a way does seem like another pipeline for the medical industry to provide them with these lifelong customers of antipsychotic medication.
Absolutely. Dominic, where can people find you and how can they find your movie?
They can find the movie on YouTube. It's called Cognitive Liberty Mind Control. They can find me on X. I'm at Dom Halpin, DOM_Halpin on X, and they'll find the movie on X as well.
Excellent.
Excellent. And Bob Pullen, final thoughts on where can people find you?
Well, I can be found by email at repullen@comcast.net. And a final comment to answer your question, Penny. I think if we keep talking about this kind of stuff, I think communication is important, and let people know what could be going on. I have not been personally approached by anyone that's experiencing this, but now that I've got your information, Mr. Halpin, I look forward to the series we're going to do, and at least I can tag it with some kind of background if somebody approaches me with this kind of problem. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Joan Renee, final comments and and positive thoughts as to how we can change this, perhaps.
I think one of the things is that we being aware of it. If someone is describing this, especially the Havana syndrome, which is part of this, that we understand that it isn't necessarily a mental problem and we don't back away, because a lot of times that's what happens. And I'm also encouraged that when we did meet with Jesse Beltran, that they had some ways to block some of the technology that they're using, and they're coming up with that now within internally. If it's related to the nanotech, they're finding ways to neutralize the nanotech that's in the bodies. So I do think that these steps are positive and eventually will come to a way of either recognizing or resolving these targetings that they're doing now. And and you can find me here on Agent X11. You can find me on the Trauma Triage team on Wednesdays. You can find me on the Awake Nation on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I also have an X channel on Joan Renee 27.
Excellent. And Skip Press, you always have hope for our future and you negate the negative. Give us a positive ending to this schemata.
Well, I have an amazing amount of English sources in my life that have told me things completely independently of each other, not knowing each other, so that I know things about the crown, English royalty, English spies, etc.
I know you're fascinated.
The crown is crumbling. King Charles will happily tell you that he is a descendant of Vlad Dracul, who Dracula was based on. Prince William, who many people think because of his birth date is destined to be the Antichrist, was over in Brazil talking about climate change. Well, please. That's
because hell is coming here.
Yeah, and Andrew, I know how Andrew really lost the love of his life. It was not Sarah Ferguson, it was somebody else, somebody I know. I know how Diana picked the guy who wrote her biography. I know a lot about the tunnel job, as it's called, Diana's crash. So I'm not just basing these things on intuition when I know the trajectory of these things, and the crown is crumbling. Boys, you very capable spy people who are in 6 and 5, get prepared to get another job, because quit doing these things. It's detrimental to yourself, not just to humanity. George Orwell busted you, a great English writer, busted you a long time ago. And the tsunami of goodness that is going to sweep forward despite current bad things is going to overwhelm you and take you out. Get with God and abandon Baphomet. It's over.
Wow. Love you, Skip. Where can people find you?
Skip Press on X and skippress.com and various and sundry places, particularly with Pennyland.
That's true. And we do have another show this evening with Thomas Special. Hopefully you will all join us for that. Dominic, I want to thank you so very much for your bravery and for your ingenuity and for you to put a positive spin on the negatives that were happening to you and are still happening to you. And I entreat you people to try to find you on X and to look at your documentary. It's fabulous. We've only gotten into 16 minutes of it. So I welcome you back again. Hopefully MI6 will stop literally bugging you. And we'll be able to have a cohesive, one show. And so I thank our audience too, Bob Pullen. I thank you for joining us on
Thank
Fridays, Agent X11 as a co-host. And I thank all the people that contribute to Agent X11 and also to the Awake Nation. You are our future. We have a job as elders. I'm going to put myself there. I'm 67 to educate those youngsters and to keep our eyes open and to not fall to the wayside. The woe is me, all is, falling and crumbling. But maybe like Skip says, the bad stuff is falling away. So we'll try to take a look at a more positive outlook on that. My name is Penny Ellie Shepherd. I am Agent X11. If you don't know why I am Agent X11, you will have to revisit it. I know that I'm going to be watching the last season of Stranger Things. Hopefully, if 11 turns into a podcaster and is on the Awake Nation, that's going to be concerning. So thank you all for watching us. Please join the Awake Nation Monday through Friday, and that is 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. We do 1 hour of news, and then we do commentaries and guests, and that is on the David Zubrick channel on Rumble. Also, David informed me that he does have a show on Saturday. It is it's Wake Nation. It's a weekend update, and it's a commentary that he does. And I'm just going to play a little bit of his promo just because I made it. And so here's just a prequel for his show, and then we'll be right back.
Could you look at you? Hey, damn straight, I got something to say. Ain't saving it for a rainy day. Damn straight, I'm mad we've all been had. History's lies, man, it's making me mad. Boy, I'm ready to fight. Awaken nation, we're breaking bad to ooh night.
David Zubrick on the Awake Nation on Saturdays. He has changed his time, so his time is now going to be 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, the same time as the Awake Nation. And he will be doing his Damn Straight Weekend Update. So please look forward to that. Again, I thank you all for joining us at Agent X11, and we are out of time, so we are out of here. Shepherd out.
Skip out.
Renee out.
Bob out.
Goodbye for today from Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. We post new episodes daily. Check out our true crime episodes Wednesdays and Fridays. forget to watch our main show, David Zubrick's Awake Nation, on the David Zubrick channel on Rumble, live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern.